Hey everyone, welcome back. Today I'm going to do a video showing you my current board that I ride, why I got it and what I'll be riding next. This is my current rider, which you've probably seen before in my other videos, but I thought I'd actually just do a video to explain it, as I'm not sure I've done that before and I keep getting asked what it is I'm riding. So most recently you'd have seen it in my Griptape video, re-gripping it. So that's the Griptape. If you haven't seen that video, you might want to watch it. And let me just come back here a bit so you can see it properly. But it's a Pal Peralta Steve Caballero 216 model. So it's Steve Caballero's vert and pool skating board. First of all, the main thing I like about it, it's got a very square tail. I love square tails. I don't really like tapered tails at all, just from the looks. Doesn't make an awful lot of difference to riding, but I just feel like I like square tails and it feels like my foot is always all the way across the board, so I like square tails. It's got fairly parallel sides. They do dip in a bit at the rear trucks here, but fairly straight all the way. A nice round nose, quite a long nose, and very steep actually. The nose is pretty steep compared to a lot, but I like very rounded noses and parallel sides and square tails. And one thing about this board is it's got really has got quite a steep concave when I compare it to other decks, and it just seems to fit right. Like my front foot in that pocket there feels great when I'm riding on ramps and bowls. I feel like I've got a lot of control in my toe and my heel when I'm carving or doing tricks. So the shape and the concave and everything feels really nice. This one is the Flight model, so it's the original, the first release Flight version with the Flight logo. Flight boards, if you don't know about them, I'm sure you've probably heard of them by now, but they are just a new kind of construction where they are 5-ply, 2 layers of carbon fiber, one in the middle, one on the very top surface. So that's that black you can see there. I think it's carbon fiber. It's a carbon Kevlar type composite anyway, and that is designed to be a bit longer lasting and in the sense of not snapping your deck. However, I never snap decks. I've only ever snapped one, and that was in 1994, I think, doing a boneless down a stairs and landing in the middle of the board and snapping it. So I don't snap decks, and I didn't buy it because it was a Flight board. I actually bought it because of the shape, and they no longer make it in a non-Flight version. Just to move on and show you that I have the same board in a non-Flight version, which is what I was riding first and liked it. So that's why I ended up with this. So that's the 216 Pal Peralta Steve Caballero. I have Indie trucks. They are standard independent. They are 149s, which is what Steve Caballero rides. And a lot of people say, oh, you can't put 149s on a 9-inch board, but because it tapers in there at the back, they do fit right, and Steve Caballero rides them, so can't be completely wrong. It's his board after all. So they're 149s, and these are Spitfire full conical 99 durometer Formula 4s. Hopefully you can see that. They are 58mm, so I like bigger wheels as well. So I'm, as you probably gathered by now, a bit old school. So bigger wheels, they go faster. That's one thing. The bigger the wheel, the faster you go. And with these Spitfire full conicals, the larger size you go, the wider they are as well. So they gradually get wider as they get bigger. That lends itself to a lot better grip, because the wider your wheels are, the more you have in contact with the surface at any one time, and therefore they grip better. And so that, for me, on bowls and mini ramps and such, I like that. And the width as well, the width of the wheels also probably lend themselves to the 149 trucks. It all kind of lines up and fits about right. So they're 58mm, 99 durometer, full conical Spitfire Formula 4s. These rails, they're old stock Pal thin ribs, which were what Pal used to sell up until I think the early 2000s. They're basically the same these days pretty much the same as the pig rails. So they're very slim in that profile. But why they're good and why Steve Caballero still rides them, I think he's got a massive stockpile of them, but why he still rides them as well, I think, is because they're very hard, much harder than normal rails, or than a lot of normal rails. And when they're very hard, they slide very well, a lot better than the softer plastic, and they tend to grip a little bit more. I like the hard ones because they don't grip. And so yeah, I've got a few sets of these as well stockpiled. You can't get them anymore, they don't make them anymore. But luckily I found some old stock, so I'm running these as long as I can. I've flipped them over once, so the area that I slide on is generally around here, and so I've flipped them around because they got worn down very much here, and you can see the line down the middle there where they're wearing down, and because of the steep concave of the board, they are right at that point where they're wearing down. Now I could just get deeper rails, which I will probably do next time. They did fit. If you lay a straight edge between the rails, it wasn't touching the board at the time, and it began to, the more that they wore down. So that's the rails, and they're screwed in with wood screws. There was a conversation the other day on one of the Pal Peralta Flight Facebook group talking about applying rails to flight boards, and really people saying, oh, you know, you have to be careful putting rails on the flight boards because the threads strip out the wood and such and such. I don't find them really that much different to any other board. The deck is a bit thinner that way. They're thinner that way because of the construction, so you can't use long screws, but generally the screws that come with rails are about right. Sometimes you might get the very point sticking out the top, but you can just snip them off with some heavy duty cutters or file them down. But when you're applying rails, usually it's best to drill a very small pilot hole first, screw the rails in, take them off again, rub down the volcano that gets created out of the hole, because when you're screwing in it tears some of the wood out, so rub that down and then put the screws back in, and you'll get a nice flat fit to the board there. So that's the rails. I've got some 1/8 inch risers, which I tend to put on there for two reasons. I mean, I always used to use them for kind of shock protection on the board. It's not really necessary these days, but I just don't like base plates straight on the board. Just don't. And also when you've got big wheels, you have to be careful of wheel bite, and so I've got one little burn hole there in the back where the wheels are bitten a little bit, but generally they're all right, so they're not biting. Standard bushings in the independents. A lot of people seem to think that you got to initially change out the bushings because they're not very good in independent trucks. I find them perfect. I never need to switch them out. And actually friends of mine gave me their bushings that they switched out because they don't like the indie bushings, so I got some extra free ones. So this is the second set of bushings I've been on these trucks, because I've had the trucks for 2 years. And I'm getting through them. You can see they're grinding down very well. Getting a nice little rut there. And same on the front, they're grinding down quite considerably now, so might have to change the trucks soon, and just regular independent bolts. So that's the board. It's beginning to wear out a bit on the tail as well, because as I say, I've been riding it for 2 years now, so it's beginning to razor a bit. And I only ride on ramps and bowls, so I don't do street at all at the moment. I might do at some point, but I don't at all, so it doesn't get bashed about on the sides, you know, things like kick flips and such. So it's only a case of the tail razoring over a very long period of time, 2 years, that I'll be replacing this at some point soon. So that's my current rider, and I know I mentioned that I'd been riding the same shape before, so this one is the same board. It's actually a 2014 model, so the flight one is a 2016 model, I think, or is it 2018? Oh no, 2017, somewhere in between. So that flight one is a 2017 model. This is the 2014 Steve Caballero 216. So exactly the same board, same shape, but it's regular ply instead of the flight. And this one is what I was riding before I got the flight, and it's actually in a lot better condition than the Flight because I've been riding that for 2 years pretty much, and this one I've been riding, I think I rode it for about 6 months. I wasn't really a big fan of the graphic, neither was Steve Caballero from originally, so this graphic is a redo of his first ever graphic, and it never went into production because he didn't like it. It was a VCJ graphic from Pal Peralta. I wasn't a big fan. Again, I got it because of the shape. It's exactly the same mold as the Flight version, 216. This has actually got 159 trucks on it, and so you can see they stick out slightly more. People say they're slightly better suited to this deck. To me, doesn't really matter that much. And these are Powell rib bone rails, which are a lot deeper, but they're not as hard. Bones SPF, skate park formula, P5 profile shape wheels. These are the Bucky Lassick ones, but they're all the same, just with different graphics on them. So that's the one I was riding before. So on to what might be my next rider. I've gone through several choices and bought decks, but not ridden them yet, and changed my mind about what will be my next rider. So what is currently going to be my next rider, which might be very, very shortly, all came from the reissue of the Santa Cruz Eric Dressen Everslick. So this, some of you might remember this board from the mid-90s. It was early 90s, I think, maybe. Can't remember, doesn't have a date on this. But this is a reissue of Eric Dressen's Everslick board in the, I think it was around 1993, 94. And so this got released fairly recently. See the Dressen graphic on the top there. And I remember having this as a kid. Well, actually, I had it for a few months. So back when I had my Bucky Lassick Stadium board, when I was in my teens, my friend had this board. It was the dark blue version. We actually swapped boards for a few months, and so I had this for a little while, and I really liked it. And so when I saw that this was being reissued, I thought I'd got to grab one just for nostalgic purposes. But the reason that this won't be my rider, A, because it's the nostalgia, I want to keep it nice. How sad is that? But I do collect boards as well. But also it's an Everslick, and so that means it's got a plastic slick bottom on it. I prefer to ride rails these days. Always did, really, apart from when I had a couple of slicks. And so you can't, it's just not right putting rails onto a slick. I know I can, there's no rules, I can do whatever I want. But to me, it just doesn't seem right putting rails onto a slick board. So I'm gonna keep hold of this. And I've actually bought the same deck, but in a non-slick version, which might be my next rider. But it's got a different graphic. So this is the glittered roses cross graphics. So there's glitter on there, those roses. I have to say I'm not really a fan of the graphic. The cross is a bit cheesy to me, but I do really like black stain, which is what this is. So it's got a really nice wood grain, and it's the same shape as that Everslick. It's exactly the same shape. And so I figured I'm gonna try this. It's still in its shrink wrap at the moment as well. It's all a bit torn up, but what the heck, might as well tear that off now on camera. Everybody loves a de-shrinking video. There you go. You get a free sticker there as well. But yeah, so it's a really nice wood grain, and quite a nice top graphic there. But yeah, it's a nice deck. One thing that I'm not sure whether I'm going to get on with or not is that my Caballero boards are 15.25 inch wheelbase, so that's the distance between the two trucks, and this one is 14.25, so it's a bit shorter. I don't know if I'm going to get on with that because I quite like long wheelbase, and so I could potentially drill out and move the spacings away, or I'll go with, they actually do a different board that's very slightly different and actually got a squarer tail, which is 15 inch wheelbase. So this is 9.3 inches wide, so very slightly wider, and it's 9.3 inches by 31.9 inches, so that's the full length, with a 14.25 inch wheelbase. But I'll see how I get on. I've actually got another Santa Cruz board that kind of is the right sort of profile, so maybe I should have been riding one of those instead, which I'll grab that and show you, which lives on the wall behind me usually, but that's this one. Almost the same shape, but it's got a squarer tail. And this one is 9.35 by 31.7, and that's a 15.25 inch wheelbase. It's pretty much the same deck though, and these decks are called pre-issue. I guess when they're not reissues, they're pre-issues because they're old school shape. So this one usually lives on the wall just because it's kind of cool looking, you know, a bit of an art piece rather than a rider. Maybe I'll get one of these in this shape. They don't do this graphic anymore in this shape, but there are some creature boards and some other Santa Cruz ones. So I could try that. So I'm trying the shorter wheelbase, the 14.25, and if I don't like it, I'll go back to 15.25 if I don't just drill out the dressing. So we'll see. So bit of experimentation, and I might even end up changing my mind again before I end up riding this. I change my mind so often, I've ended up with a collection of like potential riders. Maybe I should do a video showing you all my decks, because I've got a stupidly large collection of decks that were supposed to be riders, and lots hanging on the walls as well. So at the moment, this is probably going to be my next rider, probably. Why am I going away from the Powell decks? I don't really know, apart from price. They're crazy money. You can get 2 of these for the price of one of those Powell decks. Powell decks do last me 2 years, like any board will, because as I said, I don't really thrash them on concrete in a way that would be considered thrashing them. Some people get through a deck a week. It's just not me. I don't really thrash them like that. So I'll probably end up going back to the Powell boards one day. I have actually got a brand new Steve Caballero Series 1, which I'll go and grab that and show you as well. Okay, so also I have got a brand new in bubble wrap, in shrink wrap. Another one of the flight decks, Steve Caballero Series 1 flight, which I had intended to be a rider, and it still might be. However, these are becoming really rare now. They're the first series of the Steve Caballero, and it feels kind of strangely crazy to skate it when they're becoming collector's items. It's very early for collector's items to suddenly start appearing when this is only from 2017. However, the markets are strange. I could just get another one of these boards, the newer graphic, same deck, it's still a 216, but I could just get another one of those. But I think the graphics on them are pretty terrible. Steve Caballero's graphics have been really bad in recent years, and this one was good. I will get one if they release it with the Ban This dragon on it, one of the classic dragons. I just don't like the new graphics, the new dragon graphics. They just look a bit too cartoony and like a toy board to me. I know graphics are a stupid thing to be worried about. I'm not actually worried about them. I just think I can't skate something that looks like that. That's as simple as it is. So even if I got one, I might rub down the graphic and paint it, or just leave it plain. I don't know, but I've got plenty to be thinking about. And let me know if you want me to do a video showing you all of my decks on the wall, my display boards and my potential riders. I'll happily do that. It seems like my videos generally seem to be more popular, the ones that I'm talking and showing stuff and doing tutorials and things, so people seem to quite like those videos that I do, and I'll gladly do more if you want to see them, so let me know in the comments below. Anyway, that will do for now, and thanks for watching. If you like what you've seen, leave me a comment below. Tell me what you're riding as well, what you like. Let me know if you want more of these kind of videos. And as ever, thanks for watching. And you want to see more, subscribe and click the little bell icon and you'll get notifications when my videos go live. So stay safe, take care. Thanks for watching. Bye.